Don't let her leave. Two security guards tightened their grip on the elderly woman's arms before she could reach the glass doors of the luxury Chicago boutique. I paid for everything, the woman pleaded, her voice trembling as confused shoppers turned toward the commotion. Please, just check again. No one did. Instead, phones appeared one after another, customers recording from behind racks of designer clothing, as if an old woman's humiliation had become afternoon entertainment. Vanessa Clark stepped through the gathering crowd in a tailored cream suit, her expression hard with certainty. "You old thief," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The elderly woman's face flushed. "I didn't steal anything." Vanessa moved closer. "People like you always say that." Then she raised her hand. The slap never reached its intended target. A woman rushed between them, and the crack of Vanessa's palm against her cheek silenced the entire boutique. Amelia Brooks slowly turned her face back. A red mark was already spreading across her cheek, but she didn't touch it. She didn't shout. She didn't strike Vanessa back. Instead, the beautiful, plus-size woman planted herself between Vanessa and the frightened stranger and met her eyes. "If hurting someone makes you feel powerful, hit me. But you're not touching her again." For several seconds, no one knew. Amelia could feel her cheek burning, but the elderly woman behind her was shaking harder than before. She reached back and gently covered the woman's bruised wrist with her hand. "You're okay," Amelia whispered. "You're not standing alone anymore." What Amelia could not possibly know was that the woman she had just protected was Isabella Moretti, mother of Adrien Moretti, the billionaire CEO publicly credited with building one of Chicago's most powerful business empires and privately feared as the disciplined head of the Moretti Mafia family. Amelia knew none of that. To her, Isabella was simply an elderly woman, surrounded by people who had decided she was guilty before anyone bothered to find proof. Vanessa recovered first. "Security, call the police. They can take both of them." One guard hesitated now. The crowd had begun murmuring, and a question spread that somehow no one had asked earlier. Had anybody actually seen Isabella steal the bracelet? When two officers arrived, the senior officer asked for evidence. Vanessa immediately pointed to the surveillance system. "The cameras will prove it." They didn't. The footage showed Isabella examining the bracelet and carefully returning it to the display. Minutes later, another customer, distracted by a phone call and several shopping bags, accidentally knocked the bracelet into one of her own bags. She left without realizing it. The bracelet had never been stolen. Vanessa's confidence drained from her face. "It looks suspicious," she muttered. The officer stared at her. Looking suspicious isn't evidence. Around them, several customers quietly lowered their phones. A few deleted the videos they had been so eager to record. Vanessa eventually offered an apology, but Amelia heard what was missing from it. There was no regret, only embarrassment at being proven wrong. Isabella heard it too. "I hope," she said gently, "the next person you accuse receives better treatment than I did." Her quiet words carried more weight than anger could have. Once the police finished their report, Amelia noticed the darkening fingerprints around Isabella's wrists. "Let me walk you home." Isabella tried to refuse, but Amelia smiled. "You've had enough strangers making decisions for you today, so I'll ask instead. May I?" That earned Isabella's first real smile. They walked several blocks through the neighborhood, talking not about mafia families, billion-dollar corporations, or what had happened inside the boutique, but about flowers, family traditions, and the strange way Chicago weather could change before lunch. Near a quiet intersection, Isabella finally asked, "Why did you do it?" Amelia looked genuinely confused. "Do what?" "Step in front of me. You didn't know me." Amelia glanced down, then smiled. "My mother used to say kindness costs nothing. I just did what I'd hope someone would do if she were standing there instead of you." Isabella studied her carefully. For decades, people had treated her with respect because they recognized the Moretti name. Amelia had protected her because she believed Isabella had no power at all. Before they separated, Isabella noticed Amelia unlocking the door of a modest flower shop across the street. She memorized the name, Brooks Flowers. Amelia waved goodbye and disappeared inside, already returning to a life of overdue rent, cancelled wedding orders, and problems she had no idea were about to change. Isabella watched her through the window for another moment before looking down at the bruises circling her wrists. That evening, she would try to hide those marks beneath long sleeves. But there was one man in Chicago who noticed everything about his mother. And the moment Adrien Moretti saw those bruises, the woman who had taken that slap would stop being a stranger. Adrien Moretti noticed the sleeves before Isabella had even finished crossing the dining room. It was nearly 80 degrees outside, yet his mother had arrived for dinner wearing a silk blouse buttoned neatly at the wrists. Most people would have missed it. Adrien did not become one of Chicago's most powerful men by missing details. Publicly, the 42-year-old billionaire was the disciplined CEO behind Moretti Corporation, an empire spanning real estate, logistics, hospitality, and private investment. Privately, his name carried a different weight. The Moretti family controlled an organization built long before Adrien inherited it, and in that world, people learned quickly that he rarely raised his voice because he rarely needed to. But none of that mattered when he looked across the table and saw his mother hiding something. "Your wrist." Isabella continued, unfolding her napkin. "What about it? Show me," she sighed. "Adrien." He said nothing. Isabella knew that expression. Slowly, she pulled back her sleeve. Dark fingerprints circled her wrist. Adrien's face barely changed, but something behind his eyes went cold. "Who touched you?" Isabella told him everything. The boutique, the missing bracelet, the accusation, the security guards, Vanessa raising her hand. Adrien listened without interrupting until she mentioned Amelia. "A stranger stepped between us," Isabella said. "She took the slap meant for me." That finally changed his expression. "She knew who you were?" "No." "You told her afterward?" "No." Adrien leaned back. In his world, favors came with prices. Loyalty came with history. Courage usually came with calculation. A woman willingly taking a blow for someone she believed was an ordinary stranger did not fit any category he trusted. "I want the security footage." Within an hour, the boutique manager had delivered it. Adrien watched the recording alone in his study. He saw his mother restrained. Vanessa approached. Then Amelia entered the frame. He watched her notice what was happening, hesitate for barely a second, and move. The slap landed. Amelia stayed exactly where she was. Adrien rewound the footage, watched again, then once more. It wasn't her appearance that held his attention, though she was striking. It was the absence of hesitation after she had already been hurt. She could have walked away then. She didn't. She moved closer to Isabella. She had nothing to gain, and she still stayed. Adrien pressed the intercom. "Marco." His security chief entered moments later. "Find out who she is." Marco nodded. "How far do you want us to go?" Adrien looked at the frozen image on the monitor. "Background only. Don't approach her. Don't frighten her. And if she wants nothing to do with this family, we respect that." By morning, a thin file rested on his desk. Amelia Brooks, 34. Owner of Brooks Flowers. No criminal record. No suspicious connections. A struggling business. Overdue commercial rent. 2 recently cancelled wedding contracts. Nothing explained what Adrien had watched. Across the city, unaware that Chicago's most feared mafia boss now knew her name, Amelia lifted the shutters of her little flower shop and prepared for another ordinary day. Then the bell above the door rang. Isabella Moretti had come back. 3 days after the boutique incident, Amelia was trimming the stems of a dozen white roses when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up, and her entire face brightened. "You came back." Isabella smiled as she stepped inside Brooks Flowers, this time wearing short sleeves. The bruises around her wrists had faded from purple to yellow, but Amelia noticed them immediately. "How are your wrists?" she asked. "Better. And your cheek?" Amelia touched the place where Vanessa had struck her and shrugged. "My pride suffered more than my face." Isabella laughed, and something about the sound made the tiny shop feel warmer. Brooks Flowers was nothing like the polished businesses Isabella usually entered. The wooden counter had scratches along the edge. Handwritten order cards were pinned beside the register, and several buckets of flowers occupied more floor space than Amelia could probably afford. But everything felt cared for. "I came to buy flowers," Isabella said. "Then you've made an excellent life decision." Amelia guided her toward a display. But before Isabella could choose anything, an elderly man entered carrying a worn wallet. He wanted flowers for his wife's birthday. When he quietly admitted he had only $20, Amelia didn't steer him toward the cheapest leftovers. She built a small arrangement of daisies, carnations, and greenery, tied it with ribbon, and slid it across the counter. 20 even. Isabella had watched Amelia use nearly $35 worth of flowers. The man left smiling. Amelia turned and found Isabella studying her. What? Nothing. That look definitely means something. Isabella smiled. You're not very good at business. Amelia laughed. You sound like my accountant. Later, when Isabella selected a modest bouquet, Amelia refused payment entirely. These are leftovers. Isabella looked at the fresh peonies in her hands. These arrived this morning. Amelia paused. Very observant leftovers. Isabella laughed again. Amelia's kindness was becoming harder to dismiss as one extraordinary moment. It appeared in ordinary moments, when no one was supposed to be watching. Isabella returned the following week, and then again. Soon coffee appeared whenever she walked through the door. They arranged flowers together, argued over whether roses were romantic or predictable, and talked about everything from Chicago traffic to family. Amelia spoke about losing her mother years earlier, and how the flower shop had been their shared dream. Isabella admitted she had always wanted a daughter. Neither woman said what was slowly happening between them, but both felt it. Across the city, Adrien continued receiving brief reports from Marco. No hidden connections, no suspicious financial transfers, no attempt to contact the Moretti family. Amelia worked long hours, paid her employees before herself, and was quietly falling behind on rent after 2 large weddings were cancelled. Adrien had expected to find an explanation for her behavior. Instead, every new fact made the question more interesting. One afternoon, Isabella leaned against Amelia's counter and casually said, "My son is single." Amelia nearly spilled her coffee. That transition was criminal. He's handsome. Every mother says that. Successful. That usually means emotionally unavailable. Isabella narrowed her eyes. You haven't met him. I've met men. Isabella laughed. Have dinner with him. Amelia shook her head immediately. Absolutely not. Why? Amelia busied herself rearranging a vase that needed no rearranging. Because men like your son date women who look like they belong beside them. Isabella's smile disappeared. And what does that mean? Amelia hesitated. You know, polished, thin, the kind of woman who walks into a room and nobody wonders how she got invited. She tried to make it sound like a joke. It didn't quite land. I'm 34, Isabella. I know what I look like, and I know how people look at me. Isabella watched her carefully. This was the same woman who had stepped between a raised hand and a complete stranger without asking who was watching. Yet when the judgment was directed inward, Amelia seemed far less willing to defend herself. Perhaps, Isabella said softly, you've spent too much time listening to people who were never qualified to measure your worth. Amelia looked away. That sounds suspiciously like something a mother would say. Maybe I'm practicing. Amelia smiled despite herself. Neither woman noticed the black sedan parked across the street. Inside, Adrien had intended to stay only long enough to see the woman from the surveillance footage with his own eyes. Then he saw his mother laughing through the flower shop window, really laughing, and Amelia beside her, waving a pair of pruning shears while telling some animated story. Adrien had spent weeks reading reports about Amelia Brooks. For the first time, he realized reports were no longer enough. He opened the car door. Adrien entered Brooks Flowers, expecting to observe. Within 30 seconds, Amelia put him to work. The bell chimed as he stepped inside, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a month of the shop's rent. Isabella saw him first. Her eyebrows lifted, but Adrien gave her the smallest warning glance. Amelia was finishing an order and barely looked up. I'll be with you in a minute. Adrien stopped. People usually rearranged their schedules. When he entered a room, Amelia finished tying a ribbon, handed the bouquet to her customer, and only then turned toward him. Her eyes traveled over his suit, polished shoes, and expensive watch. Let me guess. Anniversary you forgot, apology you owe, or both? Isabella covered a smile with her coffee cup. Adrien glanced at his mother. Do I look that guilty? You look expensive, Amelia said. Sometimes that's worse. He almost smiled. Flowers for my mother. Good answer. What do you want them to say? Adrien expected questions about color or budget. Say, flowers are a message. Congratulations, forgiveness, love, grief. What's the message? He looked toward Isabella, who was pretending to study a vase. Gratitude. Amelia's teasing softened. That I can work with. She chose white roses, lavender stock, and pale pink peonies. When she added rosemary, Adrien frowned. That belongs in a kitchen. It also means remembrance. Amelia adjusted the stems. Sometimes gratitude is about remembering who stayed when things were difficult. The words struck closer than she knew. Years earlier, during Isabella's cancer treatment, Adrien had spent nights beside her hospital bed, pretending he wasn't afraid. He said nothing, but Amelia noticed the change in his face and didn't ask. Then the delivery truck arrived. Amelia looked through the window at heavy flower boxes stacked on the sidewalk and groaned. Her employee had called in sick. She turned toward Adrien and studied him with alarming practicality. You look strong. Adrien blinked. Excuse me. Those boxes aren't going to develop legs. Outside, Marco nearly choked on his coffee. Amelia pointed toward the door. Unless that suit has a medical restriction, temporary assistant florist starts now. Isabella laughed openly. Adrien could have summoned 3 men with one phone call. Instead, he removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves, and walked outside. Amelia followed with a smaller box. Careful with that one. I know how to carry a box. Confidence, dangerous in beginners. By the 4th trip, dirt marked Adrien's white shirt. Amelia reached up without thinking and brushed it away. Both paused. Her fingers hovered near his chest before she stepped back. Occupational hazard, she said. Flowers are violent. This time Adrien laughed, not the polite sound he used at business dinners. A real laugh. Isabella watched silently. Amelia smiled as though making him laugh were ordinary. She wasn't performing for him. She wasn't measuring every word against his money or reputation. For 20 minutes, Adrien Moretti had simply been a man carrying flower boxes badly enough to earn criticism. When the arrangement was finished, he paid and picked it up himself. Your temporary employment has ended, Amelia told him. Was my performance satisfactory? I've seen worse. High praise. At the door, he glanced back. Adrien. She tilted her head. Amelia. I know. Her eyebrows rose. He nodded toward Isabella. My mother talks. That satisfied her. Outside, Marco opened the car door and stared at the dirt on Adrien's shirt. Does she know who you are? Not yet. Why not? Adrien looked through the window. Amelia was laughing with Isabella again. Because everyone meets the Moretti name first. His gaze stayed on her. I want her to know the man before the name. That evening, Isabella placed the bouquet on her dining table. Beautiful flowers. Adrien poured himself water. They're fine. And how many boxes did she make you carry? He slowly looked at his mother. Isabella smiled. Adrien understood he had been set up. Strangely, he didn't mind. And over the weeks that followed, Brooks Flowers began receiving one unusually well-dressed customer, far more often than any office could reasonably need fresh flowers. Each visit came with another excuse, but both were slowly becoming less interested in pretending flowers were the reason. By the 3rd week, Adrien had purchased enough flowers for half of Chicago. Amelia noticed. She waited until Tuesday, when he ordered another arrangement for Moretti Corporation. Again? She asked. Your employees must think they work inside a botanical garden. Adrien loosened his tie. Morale is important. So is admitting you came for coffee. He looked at the cup waiting beside the register. You assumed I was coming? No. I accidentally made black coffee with 1 sugar for an imaginary billionaire who hates cinnamon. Their routines formed quietly after that. Adrien came without announcing himself. Amelia stopped pretending his visit surprised her. Some mornings he carried boxes. Other afternoons he answered emails while she worked. She learned he skipped lunch when stressed. He learned she hummed when an arrangement was going well and became silent when bills were bad. Neither mentioned how much they had begun noticing. One afternoon, Amelia received a cancellation call from a bride whose wedding had been postponed. She stared at the order sheet, After hanging up, Adrien recognized the expression. How bad? $3,000 bad. He could have replaced the money without feeling it. Instead, he asked, "What needs doing?" Amelia glanced at the unfinished arrangements. "You have somewhere important to be." "Probably." He removed his jacket. "What needs doing?" For 2 hours, Chicago's feared Mafia Boss stripped rose stems while Amelia corrected him. He didn't offer money. He didn't call anyone. He simply stayed. That mattered more than Amelia wanted to admit. Later, she handed him a sandwich from the deli next door. Payment. Adrien examined it. For 2 hours? Temporary assistant florists have terrible benefits. I should unionize. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped her coffee. Moments like that became dangerous because they felt ordinary. Amelia could forget the tailored suits, the black sedan, and Adrien's distant world. Then, she would catch her reflection beside him and remember every cruel comment she had spent years pretending didn't hurt. Men like Adrien dated polished women who looked effortless in expensive rooms. Amelia had learned to love her body, but old wounds were patient. They knew when to speak. Isabella noticed the hesitation before either of them admitted there was anything to hesitate about. One afternoon, she placed a cream envelope on the counter. Saturday night, Moretti Foundation Charity Gala. Amelia stared at it. "No, you haven't opened it. I don't need to. That envelope looks expensive." Isabella pushed it closer. "Come with me." Amelia laughed nervously. "To a ballroom full of millionaires? I own 3 dresses, and one has fertilizer on it. Then wear one of the other 2. Isabella. The humor faded. "I don't belong there." Isabella softened. "You said the same thing about my son before you met him." Amelia looked down. "That's different." "Is it?" Amelia thought of Adrien drinking shop coffee, carrying boxes, remembering she hated lilies in enclosed rooms, and staying beside her when she had nothing cheerful to offer, somewhere between jokes and flower deliveries. He had stopped feeling impossible. That frightened her more than if he had remained distant. She picked up the invitation. One evening. Isabella smiled. One evening. Saturday arrived. Amelia stood before her apartment mirror in a rented navy gown, smoothing the fabric over curves she had spent years apologizing for. She wanted to believe she belonged wherever she chose to stand. Tonight, she wasn't sure. Across Chicago, beneath crystal chandeliers and the scrutiny of wealthy families, Adrien entered the Moretti Foundation ballroom and found himself searching every doorway. He did not know whether Amelia would come. Then, the doors finally opened. The ballroom doors opened, and Amelia immediately regretted coming. Crystal chandeliers spilled warm light across hundreds of guests in tuxedos and evening gowns. Every conversation seemed to belong to a world where nobody checked a bank balance before dinner. Amelia tightened her fingers around her clutch. Insecurity whispered anyway. Too big. Too ordinary. Wrong room. Then she saw Isabella waving across the ballroom. Amelia started toward her. Adrien saw her first. He had spent the evening greeting donors and executives. None had held his attention. Then Amelia entered, and the rest of the room seemed strangely irrelevant. She looked nervous. That surprised him. Inside Brooks Flowers, she commanded space, naturally. Here, she seemed to measure herself through everyone else's eyes. Adrien began walking toward her. He was halfway across the ballroom when another woman reached Amelia first. "Well," Vanessa Clark said, lifting her champagne glass, "this is unexpected." Amelia recognized the voice before the face. Her stomach tightened. Vanessa. Vanessa looked slowly over the navy dress, then toward the room behind Amelia. "I didn't realize the Moretti Foundation had started inviting florists as entertainment." Amelia could feel nearby conversations quieting. "I'm a guest." "Of course you are," Vanessa smiled. "And I'm sure someone found your little rescue performance very touching." Amelia refused to give her the reaction she wanted. "Enjoy your evening." She stepped around her. Vanessa moved with her. "You know what your problem is? You mistake being noticed for belonging." The words landed exactly where Vanessa intended. Amelia had heard versions before, from people who thought a plus-size woman should be grateful for attention. She lifted her chin. "And you mistake cruelty for class." Several guests turned toward them. Vanessa's smile disappeared. People like you don't belong at events like this. The same judgment, dressed in more expensive clothes. Amelia held her gaze. You said something similar about an elderly woman 3 weeks ago. How did that work out? Vanessa's face hardened. Amelia turned away, but Vanessa grabbed her wrist. I'm not finished with you. Amelia looked down at the hand gripping her. Let go. Vanessa tightened her fingers. You think one little act of charity makes you important? No, Amelia said, but it taught me something about people who need an audience to feel powerful. Vanessa pulled her closer. Then a man's voice came from behind them. Quiet, controlled, unmistakable. Remove your hand. Vanessa froze. Adrien stood only a few feet away. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Vanessa released Amelia immediately. Mr. Moretti, I can explain. Adrien stepped beside Amelia, not in front of her. Not between her and the room, but beside her. Explain what? She was causing a scene. I watched the entire thing. Vanessa went pale. More guests listened now. Isabella reached the crowd but remained silent. Adrien looked at Vanessa. 3 weeks ago, my mother entered your boutique. Vanessa blinked. Your mother? An employee accused her of stealing a bracelet. Security restrained her. You called her a thief and raised your hand to strike her. Vanessa's glass trembled. Adrien continued. Before you could, a woman who had never met my mother stepped between you. His gaze moved to Amelia. She took the blow instead. Murmurs spread across the ballroom. Vanessa stared at Isabella, recognition coming too late. I didn't know she was your mother. Adrien's expression remained calm. No, you didn't care. You believed an elderly woman deserved dignity only if she had enough power to punish you for denying it. Vanessa opened her mouth, but nothing came. Adrien faced Amelia. Are you all right? It was the first time anyone asked. Amelia nodded. I am now. Adrien offered his arm but did not take hers. The choice remained hers. Amelia looked around at the crowd that once would have made her shrink, then placed her hand on his arm. Together they walked away. Behind them, Vanessa stood alone beneath the chandeliers. Amelia felt no triumph in her humiliation, only relief. Outside, the music softened behind closed doors. Adrien led Amelia toward a quiet corridor, and for the first time that evening, she could breathe. Thank you, she said. You didn't need me to rescue you. Maybe not, but you stood there anyway. Adrien looked at her. You once did the same for someone important to me. Amelia smiled faintly, then stopped. Something in his words caught. Someone important. My mother. Moretti Foundation. Moretti. For weeks, she had known him as the man who drank coffee, carried flower boxes, and listened when she spoke. Now she understood everyone in that ballroom had known something about him she had never been told. She turned slowly toward him. The pieces suddenly aligned in a way they never had inside the flower shop. Adrien, she said, her voice quieter now. Who are you, really? For a moment, he said nothing. Amelia watched his face and realized. Silence looked different on him here than inside her flower shop. There, it had been comfortable. Here, it felt guarded. You already know I'm Isabella's son, he said. I know that now. That wasn't my question. Adrien glanced toward the ballroom doors. Not here. The next afternoon, Amelia met him at a restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. She noticed 2 men near the entrance nearby. Security? She asked. Yes. She sat across from him. Start with the part everyone else apparently knows. Moretti Corporation is mine. Real estate, logistics, hotels, private investments. Publicly, that is what the Moretti family is. And privately? He held her gaze. My family has controlled an organized network in Chicago for generations. You mean the Mafia? Yes. Amelia leaned back. The black sedan, the security, the way Vanessa had obeyed one quiet sentence, all of it made sense. You're a Mafia boss? I'm telling you the truth. After 6 weeks, I wanted you to know me before you knew the name. Amelia laughed. That sounds romantic when you say it like that. It wasn't meant to deceive you. Wasn't it? For the first time since meeting him, the mystery surrounding Adrien no longer felt exciting. It felt like a locked door between them. When did you know who I was? Adrien paused. That pause answered too much. Adrien. The night my mother came home from the boutique, before you ever walked into my store? Yes. How? Surveillance footage. Her expression changed. You watched it? Several times. And then? He could have softened the truth. He didn't. I had my security team run a background check. Amelia stared at him. On me? You had entered my mother's life. I needed to know whether there was a risk. What did they check? Public records, financial history, business records, criminal history, connections. Amelia's face lost its warmth. So when you walked into Brooks Flowers, you already knew about my rent. Adrien said nothing. The cancelled weddings? Yes. My mother? His silence answered again. Amelia pushed her chair back. You knew the parts of my life I was embarrassed to tell you. While I didn't even know your last name made people afraid of you. Amelia, listen to me. I am listening. That's the problem. Adrien lowered his voice. My mother was assaulted. A stranger suddenly became close to her. In my world, I could not ignore that. I understand why you checked. That surprised him. But understanding why you did something doesn't mean I have to be comfortable with it. She swallowed. You said you wanted me to know the man before the name, but you knew everything about me before I was allowed to know either. Adrien had negotiated with men who arrived determined to hate him. He knew how to pressure, persuade, and control a room. None of those skills belonged here. I should have told you sooner. Yes, I'm sorry. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to let the tears fall. I believe those mornings were simple. Coffee, flowers, stupid arguments about roses. I thought we were meeting each other in the middle. They were real. For me, they were equal. For you, they never were. Amelia stood. Adrien stood too, instinctively reaching toward her before stopping himself. What do you want me to do? Amelia looked at his hand, then at him. Nothing. That may be the hardest thing anyone has ever asked you to do. She picked up her coat. I need space. Every instinct Adrien possessed told him to fix it to explain more. Follow her. Remove the problem before it grew. Instead, he stayed beside the table. Amelia. She stopped but didn't turn. I never lied about how I felt when I was with you. Her shoulders tightened. Maybe not. But trust isn't only about whether your feelings were real. Then she left. Adrien Moretti could make boardrooms wait, businesses bend, and dangerous men reconsider their decisions with a phone call. He watched Amelia disappear onto the Chicago sidewalk and understood that none of it mattered. He had finally found something power could not command back into his hands. Her trust. Adrien did exactly what Amelia had asked him to do. Nothing. It was harder than he expected. For most of his adult life, problems had been things to solve. A failing business could be funded. A dangerous man could be removed. A contract could be renegotiated. A building could be purchased before breakfast. Amelia's overdue rent would have taken one phone call. Her cancelled wedding contracts could have been replaced with Moretti events before lunch. He could have filled Brooks Flowers with enough orders to keep it profitable for years. But every solution required the same thing. Reaching into her life with power she had never asked him to use. So Adrien stayed away. For the first time, protecting someone meant refusing to interfere. Isabella found him alone in his study 4 nights later. You haven't seen her? It wasn't a question. She asked for space. And you're giving it to her? I'm trying. Isabella sat across from him. You had every reason to make sure I was safe. Adrien looked up. That sounds dangerously close to defending me. I'm not. Her voice softened. Your reason was understandable. Your mistake was believing a good reason automatically made your choice fair. Adrien said nothing. You wanted Amelia to meet you without the Moretti name shaping her judgment. But you never gave her the same freedom. The truth was uncomfortable because Amelia had already said it. Hearing it from his mother made it impossible to dismiss. Across Chicago, Amelia returned to the rhythms of Brooks Flowers. Orders arrived. Bills followed. Customers came and went. Everything looked normal, except for one irritating absence. No black coffee with 1 sugar waited beside the register. No expensive jacket appeared over the back of a chair. No deep voice complained that temporary assistant florists deserved better benefits. Amelia had asked him to stay away. She hadn't expected him to respect her enough to actually do it. That realization complicated everything. She missed him, not Adrien Moretti the billionaire, and certainly not Adrien Moretti the mafia boss. She missed the man who had stayed for 2 hours when a wedding cancellation left her overwhelmed. The man who carried boxes badly, remembered she hated lilies in enclosed spaces, and listened when she spoke. But missing him did not erase what he had done. Neither did anger erase what had been real. Amelia was beginning to understand something equally uncomfortable about herself. Whenever rejection seemed possible, she preferred to leave first. It felt like independence. Sometimes it was fear wearing better clothes. A week later, an ivory envelope arrived at Brooks Flowers. Amelia almost laughed when she saw the Moretti Foundation seal. Then she noticed the sender. It wasn't Adrien. The Foundation's events committee wanted Brooks Flowers to submit a proposal for an upcoming cancer charity benefit. Amelia read the letter twice. This was not an invitation to stand beside Adrien. It was an invitation to stand on her own work. She looked toward the empty chair where he used to drink his coffee, then back at the proposal. For once, the question wasn't whether she belonged in Adrien Moretti's world. It was whether she was brave enough to enter that world without making herself smaller. Amelia submitted the proposal 2 days later. She told herself it was business, nothing more. Brooks Flowers had earned the right to compete for opportunities larger than neighborhood weddings and birthday arrangements, and she refused to let Adrien become another reason to doubt herself. 3 days later, the foundation called. She had won the contract. Her first question came immediately. Did Adrien Moretti choose me? The committee director sounded confused. Mr. Moretti wasn't involved in the selection. Mrs. Moretti recommended that we review your work, but the committee chose your proposal. Amelia closed her eyes. Somehow, that mattered. 2 weeks later, she entered the Moretti Foundation event, carrying sample arrangements instead of an invitation. This time, she wasn't wondering whether she belonged. She had been hired to be there. She was adjusting white roses near the stage when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Those boxes look heavy. Amelia turned. Adrien stood several feet away. He didn't approach until she smiled faintly. Temporary assistant florist position is currently vacant. Terrible benefits. Still terrible. Something softened between them, but neither pretended the past weeks hadn't happened. Adrien stepped closer. I owe you a better apology. Amelia waited. I wasn't wrong to protect my mother. I was wrong to decide that protecting her gave me the right to know things about you, without giving you the same honesty in return. He didn't explain further. He didn't defend himself. He simply owned it. Amelia looked down at the flowers. I was angry because you took away my choice. I know. But I also left because leaving first is what I do when I think someone might eventually decide I'm not enough. Adrien's expression changed. Amelia, let me finish. She breathed slowly. You weren't the only one hiding behind something. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrien said, I didn't fall in love with you because you took a slap for my mother. Amelia looked up. That made me curious. I fell in love with the woman I found afterward. The woman who gives $35 bouquets to men with $20, who calls fresh peonies leftovers, so an old woman can accept them without feeling indebted. Who made me carry boxes, criticized my coffee, and somehow made ordinary mornings feel like somewhere I wanted to stay. Amelia's eyes filled. Adrien continued quietly. Your courage lasted a moment. Your kindness is who you are every day. You love me? Yes. That seems inconvenient. A smile touched his face. Extremely. She laughed through the tears. Adrien didn't reach for her. I'm not asking you to enter my world and disappear inside it. I'm asking whether we can build something where neither of us has to become smaller. Amelia thought about the woman who had walked into the gala, believing she needed permission to belong. Then she thought about the proposal she had won on her own work. This choice belonged entirely to her. She extended her hand. Adrien took it. One condition, she said. What? She pointed toward the delivery entrance. Those flower boxes aren't going to carry themselves. Adrien laughed, removed his jacket, and followed her toward them. This time there were no hidden names, no secret reports, and no pretending flowers were the reason he wanted to stay. Months later, Brooks Flowers no longer survived from one order to the next. Amelia had hired 2 employees, expanded into corporate events, and become a regular floral partner for the Moretti Foundation. Isabella had opened a door, but Amelia's talent kept it open. At Sunday dinners, nobody introduced her as Adrien Moretti's girlfriend anymore. She was simply Amelia, the woman Isabella called the daughter she had somehow found late in life. One evening, a relative asked Isabella when she had known Amelia belonged with Adrien. Isabella smiled. Before he did, she stood in front of a stranger and took a slap because she thought that stranger had nobody. Adrien squeezed Amelia's hand beneath the table. Amelia smiled back. She no longer wondered whether she belonged beside him. More importantly, she no longer needed belonging to prove her worth. The following morning, an elderly woman entered Brooks Flowers and quietly counted the bills in her purse before asking for the cheapest bouquet. Amelia selected fresh peonies and wrapped them carefully. "How much?" the woman asked. Amelia handed them over. "Nothing. They're leftovers." From the back room, Adrien appeared carrying a flower box. He looked at the fresh peonies, then at Amelia. She narrowed her eyes. "Don't say anything." Adrien smiled and kept walking. The woman left holding flowers she never expected to receive, and Amelia watched through the window. The most powerful man in Chicago had never made Amelia Brooks extraordinary. He had simply learned to recognize what had been there all along.